Hi, here's Rachel, your Rediscovering coach again. In the background you can see a town. On the bottom of the town is hills. It's called Kronberg. It was a place where the painters used to go in the old days, apparently. So, what am I going to talk about today? I'm not sure yet. All I knew was that I had to get out before the rain came along. It's been threatening to rain for a few days now, so I have been making myself go out every day in between writing and researching and thinking, and I've been researching a little bit about Generation X. Now, Generation X, there isn't much about them. Everybody hears about the millennials and the baby boomers. And what I've noticed with the people I know is that there's a generation out there, and I'm not quite sure how important all this generation stuff is really, because we all go at some stage through all the same problems. Some more than others. So, but what I can, from what I can understand, of course, which it all makes sense, is that the baby boomers had a chance. You know, they were brought up after the war. They knew how to work hard. They were dedicated, and they saved. All right, and I think that's it's very much true in this country. You find that the people that are now in their 70s, 80s, they've got reasonably good pensions, although that's not always the case. But the ones who had a reasonable job, worked well, they've bought their house, they've paid for their house, and they have a good pension and they do very well. And of course, in other countries, it's a little bit different. Where I grew up in New Zealand, a lot of my parents were British who went to New Zealand to make a new start, and so, for them it wasn't that easy. But so, that's one of the generations that a lot of us forget about. And of course, the Gen X generation were the children of the baby boomers. Now, the baby boomers went through flower power and freedom and all that stuff. And of course, by the time they had children, they wanted to get out and work and do their thing. And their children sort of got left to their own devices, really. And I suppose I fall a little bit into that generation, although I'm older than Gen X. But, I was left to my own devices once my mother started working, and she used to do night shifts, and so she would come home early in the morning, and I'd always wait to see if her chin would fall into a tea I'd made for her. Never did, but she'd be falling asleep, and I'd say, just go to bed, and I'd be on my way to school. And so that's how it was there. And so Gen X, they give all these people a certain age, and I can remember working in England years ago and listening to the music, which would have been popular for the Gen X, and not particularly liking it very much. A lot of it, some of it I liked. But, if you think about it now on my age group, a lot of people are in a really hard position because their parents need looking after. So they've got elderly parents who now need some sort of looking after. And then they've got children who also need help, financial help, because schooling isn't that cheap. They're going off to university. And you send a child to university now, they've got to go somewhere far away mostly, and then they have to find a flat. They have to finance their eating and living and all of that sort of thing, plus the flat. And the government subsidies really just don't cover it. And those subsidies that they get need to be paid back at some stage. And so, what are we producing for the next generation? And when I see how my friends are having to, or some of the people I know are having to look after their bedridden parents, that is such a responsibility. The responsibilities for people in that age group in their 50s, 60s, or probably 50s is really, really heavy. And I just wonder how they cope. How do they get through all of that? How do they cope with the stress, the worry? And on top of that, because they're having to look after elderly parents and look after their children and send them through to college and to university and so forth, how do they even manage to save up for their retirement? It's a big question, isn't it? Love your comments. Just give me your comments below. I'd just love to hear where you are, whereabouts you are, what's worrying you. What are you thinking about for the future? Are you even thinking about the future? If I see a lot of the millennials now are really just doing their own thing. They are not, they're breaking off college, they're building their businesses and not really frightened of anything. And I find that extremely enlightening. I find it wonderful that when anybody can actually just go out there and start doing their thing and not really worry about what others think and just making their mark on the world. I think that is wonderful. I want to do that myself as well. That's what I'm busy doing. And so anyway, comment below. Just tell me what you think. Give me your ideas. Tell me what your problems are. I would love to hear them. So this is Rachel signing off for now. And we shall speak to you soon. Bye.